Welcome to my channel Sci-Fi Love Story. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. The twin suns of Nova Prime rose together like molten mirrors, reflecting off the jagged cliffs of the planet's capital, Obsidian Reach. The city had been carved from black stone and reinforced alloys, towers climbing like claws toward the sky. Airborne freighters traced glowing trails across the atmosphere, leaving streaks of ionized light that shimmered and vanished, and above them, orbital platforms scanned the horizon with relentless precision. Every corner of Nova Prime was alive with the hum of energy, the pulse of machinery, and the discipline of a civilization that had survived centuries of war. Inside the central spire of Obsidian Reach, the High Chancellor Kayla Rin observed her city through a panoramic viewport. Her posture was exacting, her movements measured. Every citizen, every soldier, and every diplomat in the city knew the quiet authority she carried. Her long, silver-flecked hair framed sharp, attentive features, and her violet eyes seemed to see beyond the visible spectrum, reading both the city and the people who walked it. Today, however, she faced an unusual challenge. A human had arrived, a species most of the outer colonies considered fragile, yet rumored to possess an instinct for survival and adaptability that no other had mastered. The human was Captain Adrian Hale, a soldier from the outer colony of Terra Nova. He moved with a quiet confidence, his combat suit streamlined and dark, reinforced only where necessary, and designed for mobility over intimidation. Unlike the towering warriors of Nova Prime, he carried no heavy weapons, only a kinetic baton at his hip, nearly invisible to the untrained eye. But it wasn't his gear that commanded attention. It was the way he moved, measured and precise, as though he could calculate the outcome of any situation before it occurred. In the hall before him stood Champion Voral, a massive alien whose armor gleamed like molten gold. Each victory he had ever won was etched into the layered plating of his body suit, a permanent reminder of his lethality. His twin plasma blades flickered with quiet energy, waiting for the moment to strike. The audience in the hall, nobles, soldiers, and advisors, watched silently, anticipating the clash. "You come far from a weak world, human," Voral said, his voice amplified by the hall's acoustic nodes. "Do you truly believe you can survive me?" Adrian's gaze was steady. "I do not only believe, I intend to prove it." A ripple of murmurs spread through the hall. No human had ever challenged a Nova Prime champion within the central spire, let alone a warrior of Voral's reputation. The crowd leaned forward instinctively, their anticipation palpable. Chancellor Kayla spoke, her voice smooth but commanding. "Captain Hale, this duel is not only a test of skill, it is a matter of law, honor, and record. Do you understand the risks?" "I do," Adrian replied calmly, "and I accept them." Voral stepped forward, the energy of his twin blades casting sharp shadows on the floor. He lunged at Adrian immediately, a strike so fast and heavy that the ground shuddered beneath him. Sparks erupted where his blades nearly touched the floor, sending waves of heat and light across the hall. Adrian didn't retreat. Instead, he moved diagonally, just enough to let Voral's momentum carry him past. The human's footwork was minimal but exact, allowing him to evade without showing fear. Each motion was calculated to conserve energy while maintaining balance. The hall went silent. Even Voral seemed surprised. "Impressive," whispered one of the nobles. "The human is not merely fast, he anticipates." Voral's strikes grew sharper, faster, yet Adrian remained calm, sidestepping, shifting, and observing. Every micro-movement in Voral's armor, every weight shift, Every tilt of the blades, Adrian recorded internally. Then, when the moment came, he moved. 2 precise taps against Voral's armor at weak points caused minor servo disruptions, not enough to injure him, but enough to slow his response. The champion faltered, and for the first time, the audience saw doubt in the alien warrior's eyes. "You cannot rely solely on strength," Adrian said quietly, circling Voral. "Strategy, observation, and adaptation matter more than brute force." Voral snarled, swinging wildly, but each attack now betrayed hesitation. Adrian anticipated the strikes, using minimal effort to redirect force, letting Voral's own energy work against him. The audience erupted in astonishment as the massive warrior struggled to regain composure. Chancellor Kayla tilted her head, her ears shifting subtly with interest. "Humans," she murmured. "They endure, they adapt, they observe, they learn from every strike." The duel continued as the suns rose higher, casting molten light across the hall. Adrian did not seek glory or aggression. He moved like a calculation made flesh, reading Voral, exploiting openings, and forcing the champion to overextend. Every failed attack, every misstep, highlighted the difference between raw power and precision. Finally, Voral launched a massive strike, a swing designed to overwhelm. Adrian sidestepped effortlessly, tapping the same weak point with exact timing. Voral staggered, unbalanced but unharmed. The audience went quiet for a heartbeat, then erupted in stunned cheers. Adrian extended a hand to help Voral to his feet. The champion looked at him, breathing heavily, realizing that strength alone was not victory. Strategy, patience, and clarity had tipped the scales. Chancellor Kayla rose from her throne, ears tilting in respect. "Captain Hale," she said, her voice carrying across the hall, "your actions will be recorded for history. You have shown that humans are more than mere survivalists. You have proven that they can teach lessons even to the strongest among us." Adrian bowed slightly. "I only hope history remembers that survival is not enough. We must also think, observe, and act with purpose." The hall erupted once more, voices echoing off the obsidian walls. Citizens of Nova Prime celebrated the humans' achievement, not in disbelief but in awe. But as the cheers rang out, a quiet alert sounded across the city. Sensors in orbit had detected a massive fleet approaching from beyond the outer rim, too large, too silent, and moving with precision that marked it as hostile. Adrian straightened, his eyes narrowing at the distant blips. The duel was over, but the real test had only just begun. "The lesson is not complete," he murmured, "not by far." And with that, the celebrations of Nova Prime became overshadowed by the shadow of an approaching storm. A test not of a single duel, but of an entire species, resolve and ingenuity. The twin suns of Nova Prime had climbed higher, spilling molten light across Obsidian Reach, but the celebration in the central spire was cut short. From orbit, the massive fleet advanced in perfect formation. Thousands of sleek, black ships, their edges angular and designed for speed, moved like a storm descending upon the planet. Sensors reported that each vessel carried weapons capable of flattening entire city blocks. Nova Prime, for all its defenses, could not face them head-on without devastating losses. Adrian Hale's eyes narrowed. He had faced a champion in the hall, but this was an army, entirely different. Yet, as always, his mind worked faster than the sensors could calculate. "Chancellor," he said, turning to Kayla Rin, "their approach is deliberate. Not a raid, they intend occupation. We have to think differently, not fight traditionally." Kayla's ears tilted, subtle shifts betraying her concern. And what do you propose, human? Even your ingenuity has limits. Adrian tapped his wrist console. Holographic schematics of the city, orbital defenses, and the fleet shimmered in the air between them. We will not meet them at the sky gates. That would be suicide. Instead, we use the city itself, the terrain, the energy conduits, and the fleet's own protocols against them. I need a team of your best pilots, engineers, and soldiers. By the next cycle, Adrian had orchestrated a plan. Orbital defense cannons were recalibrated, not for direct fire, but to create energy corridors, leading enemy ships into precise zones. Adaptive shields along the cliffs were synchronized with magnetic flux fields to manipulate ship trajectories. And within the city, citizens who could operate defense turrets were trained to act as dynamic nodes in a single, coordinated network. Vorel, still recovering from his duel, approached Adrian. You truly believe humans can face an entire fleet? His voice was tinged with awe, almost respect. Not believe, Adrian corrected. I know. Humans survive by thinking, adapting, and never underestimating the unexpected. Watch closely. You may learn more in the next hours than in your entire career of victories. The first wave descended. Ships emerged from orbit, engines flaring as they aimed for the city's primary energy grid. Nova Prime's adaptive shields rippled outward, forming invisible barriers that redirected plasma blasts. Explosions erupted in empty space, not against structures, as Adrian's calculations forced the enemy fleet to collide with their own energy corridors. From the ground, turrets opened fire. Humans moved swiftly, communicating silently with gestures, signals, and pre-programmed commands. Every shot was precise, every strike intentional. Alien observers, including Vorel, watched in disbelief as ships began to break formation, crashing into each other or being trapped by magnetic currents. Adrian led a small strike team through the city's underlayers, tunnels carved into volcanic rock and reinforced alloy. Sensors showed enemy landing pods attempting infiltration. The team moved like shadows, silent, lethal. When the first pod opened, they struck with kinetic pulses and magnetic disruption devices, disabling the ships without casualties. The alien fleet adapted. Massive fighters broke orbit to target the city directly, their weapons designed to shred stone and metal. Adrian smiled faintly. Let's make them regret adapting too quickly. He activated the city's energy conduits, creating pulses of plasma that arced along the cliffs. When the first wave of enemy fighters passed, the conduits triggered, short-circuiting the ship's systems just long enough to force them to crash into the cliffs. Kayla monitored the battle from the central spire. Incredible, she whispered. No species has ever used our city as a weapon like this. Adrian's strategy was not brute force. He relied on anticipation, precision, and environmental manipulation, human traits honed over centuries of survival on unforgiving worlds. By the second wave, the enemy fleet was in disarray. Ships collided midair, others fell into gravity traps, and human marksmen picked off remaining pilots with rail rifles from concealed turrets. Then came the flagship, a massive vessel bristling with weapons, dropping toward Obsidian Reach like a hammer. Adrian assessed it quickly. Too big for direct attack. We need to destabilize it from within. He and Vorel led a strike team, boarding the vessel with magnetized boots and plasma cutters. Inside, corridors were maze-like, but Adrian's team moved with efficiency. Every enemy crew member neutralized, every system overridden in sequence. At the core, Adrian placed disruption devices along the primary energy conduits. The flagship shuddered violently, its engines fluctuating, systems failing. Voral, now fighting alongside humans, cut through the remaining guards with precision, all mixing with determination. "Your species is remarkable," he admitted as he swung his plasma blade. Adrian's calm voice echoed in the control room. "Strength is nothing without calculation." With a final sequence, the flagship's main engines overloaded. The massive ship erupted in a controlled chain reaction, vaporizing above the city without touching it. From the city below, citizens erupted in cheers. The fleet, seeing its flagship destroyed, faltered. Remaining ships retreated, formation broken, morale shattered. Nova Prime had survived. Against impossible odds, the humans and their allies had prevailed. Kayla Rin descended to the city floor as the dust settled. She approached Adrian, her eyes reflecting pride and astonishment. "Captain Hale, you did more than survive. You taught us a lesson. Strength is not everything. Humans endure because they adapt, they calculate, and they act with purpose when others rely solely on force." Adrian nodded quietly, humbly. "The lesson is always in the actions, not the weapons. Victory is earned, not demanded." Voral stepped forward, placing a hand on Adrian's shoulder. "I doubted your species. I have learned my mistake. You are not merely survivors. You are teachers of strategy, endurance, and ingenuity. Today, Nova Prime owes its life to you." Chancellor Kayla looked out at the city, the sun now casting long golden shadows over Obsidian Reach. History will remember this day, not for a duel or a fleet, but for the human who turned the impossible into reality. Adrian glanced at the horizon, his mind already assessing, already planning. Humans never stopped learning, never stopped adapting. Today they had stood against the odds and triumphed. Tomorrow they would continue to stand. And in the skies above Nova Prime, the twin suns reflected off the black cliffs like molten mirrors, as though the planet itself acknowledged that one human had proven what all humans were capable of: endurance, ingenuity, and the unbreakable will to survive. For the people of Nova Prime, it was not the fleet's defeat that mattered most. It was the lesson that strength alone was never enough. And for the humans, it was only the beginning.